Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stina, and I'm a consultant from Sopra Steria. I've been working with the Norwegian Medicinal Agency for almost 5 years now. And I will do the technical part of the presentation. With me, I have Helga, the project owner. At least when I talk, please ask questions. Good if Pelle helps me keep an eye on it. Also, nice if you are comfortable with it, have your camera on. It's nice to see who I'm talking to. That's the wrong place here. The agenda for today, Helga is gonna introduce you to the project, some background context, and then I'm gonna talk about FIHR. So I'll just give the word to you, Helga.
Thank you, Stine. Yes, my name is Helga Feste, and I am leading the unit in the Norwegian Medicines Agency, which is responsible for our electronic prescription support. So I just wanted to say in the beginning that SAFEST, it's an acronym in Norwegian for Hospital Pharmacy Electronic Prescription Support. And the background is that the NOMA has since 2008 delivered electronic prescription support to the physicians all over for prescribing medicines for which is handed out in pharmacies. But what happened was that the hospitals found this information very useful also for themselves for inpatient use. And then the hospitals started to develop the information further and make local changes and developments. And the hospital pharmacies saw this, and then they thought that there should be a national service for this information, that this information should be the same in all over the country in the specialized care. And they started pushing this project by defining the needs they had. And for several years, there was an agreement that it would be very useful to have this national service, but no one wanted to pay for it. But after some years, the Ministry of Health and Care Service simply decided that the specialized care, the hospitals just had to pay for this, and that the Norwegian Medicines Agency, the NOMA, should be responsible for the development. This map shows how the specialized care is organized in Norway. The country is divided into 4 regions, and they are responsible for hospitals and specialized care. So naturally, because the health regions are paying for this, they are very important stakeholders, and in a way they're project owners too. And we also have the Directorate of Health in the project to help us follow standards, and also to help with especially SNOMED standardization. Yes, I think that we could move on to the next slide. Yes, as I mentioned, the hospitals in Norway, or especially in the 4 different regions, they have different systems, and it's not standardized, so it's very difficult to implement changes. And also the use of international systems, as in what do you call it, decision support. Yes. These 4 regions, they are all independent, so they don't need to coordinate actually, but we find that they try to coordinate themselves, and that the SAFEST project has become an arena for this too. We help coordinating their needs and for development. think you can just go on. So the goal is to establish a new national medical dictionary, which will be very useful to the hospitals. We think that it can also be useful to other actors, for instance, care homes in the municipalities. And the information, the dictionary, will be available for free for anyone who can upload it or use it. So we will see if also municipalities will make use of it. But in general, it's directed towards the needs of specialized care. The health regions defined 4 areas they needed improved information. They needed improved data quality in general, more definitions of strength and pharmaceutical dose form of packages and routes of administration. They also needed a base for ordination of substance, so it will not be necessary to ordinate the brand names anymore. There was also a need of data on nutritional products, more detailed information about the content of the products. This applies both to pharmaceutical products defined as pharmaceuticals and also enteral products like nutritional drinks, for instance. The hospitals also needed product codes on a unit level, on several levels of the packages. This will allow for implementing closed-the-loop in the hospitals so that they can keep track on which tablet or which capsule went into the mouth of which patient at what time. And then we have also the last area here, standardization. It has proved to be rather challenging to implement standards, and Stine will talk more about this. But the regions, they defined the 4 areas I talked about. But standardization, they all agree that standardization is also very important, although it's sometimes a hassle for those who need to change their systems because of the standardization, but everyone agrees that it's the way forward. Okay, thank you. I haven't said anything about the period of time. The project started in February 2019 and has been going on now for 2 years. And the original plan was to hand over and finish the project now in December. But in the autumn, we saw that the technical development had not had was not going to be finished at that time. So now we're in a period where we are making new plans for the project, and we see that it will need to go on at least half a year, and it will be more costly, of course. But we need to, everyone agrees that this is very important. We need to finish the project. Next slide. So these are the international standards we are implementing. I guess you're all familiar with these. And Stine is going to talk about FIHR. The implementation of SNOMED came perhaps as a little surprise to the project and the regional health authority, the regions. So when it was implemented as sort of regulation from the Director of e-health. But we're loyal and we're really trying to do this, and we'll see the benefits of it. I think now Stine will take over, but are there any questions to what I've been talking about?
No questions.
No questions
yet, but feel free to raise your hand or speak out in that case.
I think I could add that even though I think the regions, the health regions, they were reluctant to pay for this, which is understandable. But when we got the money and could start working, everyone in all the people in the regions are very eager to take part, and they engage a lot in discussions. And so we got a really good team with us from the health regions.
No questions, so just proceed.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to talk more about FIHR in Safest. I will give you an overview of the Safest platform. I'm going to do a short introduction of FIHR. As I understand it, no, not everybody's familiar with it. We're going to see some of the decisions we've made regarding FIHR, and the main part will be about how we did profiling, and I'm going to explain what profiling is. And we're going to talk about some experiences, some challenges, and some conclusion and summary. And I will also provide you with the links to the Safest documentation. In Safest, I've been mainly a developer, but I've also been responsible for the FIHR profiling. And what you see here is an overview, but at the same time, quite detailed overview of Safest platform. The platform is separated into three main modules. On the left side, you have ITX, or integrations. It's the module for all our integrations of data into the platform. In the middle, you have core, which is our main module having the IDMP database. And on the right-hand side, you have the distribution module, where we have our FIHR API, which the consumers will use. On the top left side, you see our on-premise resources. That's Athene, the Medicinal database we have on-premise now. We do a copy and we push that database to the cloud every night, where we qualify the database and we identify the deltas, or what has changed on-premise, and then we push the changes to core. We also have some external resources. We get data carrier identifiers. Specifically, we get the product codes for the packages from a company called Pharmalog. We get the deltas from them, and as I said, we push them to the IDMP database. We also get the nutritional products from Pharmalog. And we have an integration with the Directorate of eHealth, where we get the SNOMED terminology. And there we also use their FIHR API to do it. So in ITX, you see we have a bunch of functions that gets data and forward it to core. And in core, we have a bunch of functions doing some load and transformation to IDMP. We also have a user interface in core. It will give users the possibility to fix quality issues and also enrich the data with unstructured data they have in files and documents. And then we push, or we distribute, publish the data on FIHR. So what is FIHR? FIHR stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. It's big, it's complex. I've kind of broken it down to two things. It says what and how you exchange healthcare information. The what, that's the resources part of the name. All data objects are called resources, and they define all the different data objects you would like to exchange within healthcare. The aim for FIHR is to provide almost everything you need, but not all. So it also has the flexibility for you to extend those resources to your needs so that you get everything you need to complete your use cases. And with the how, that's how you exchange your data, and it's based on RESTful practices. So that's when you come into the fast interoperability of the name. You use well-known standards everywhere, and so it's easy to implement, it's easy to use, and it's familiarized everywhere. I will name some key concepts during the presentation. One of those was resources, which I mentioned, the data object. A profile or profiling is when you extend a resource for your use. You add some properties, you take away some properties, you change the cardinality of something. That's when you profile. And then you have codable concepts, which is a data type, and it enables you to use all different kinds of terminologies. So for instance, for pharmaceutical dose form, your consumers might use SNOMED, they might use SPOR, they might use some national terminology. And if you map all those together, you can give the consumers the flexibility to use whichever terminology they like or have already implemented. There are some FIHR versions, and why this is important, I will get back to it, but the current version is called R4. It was the first normative version, but it also has some so-called STU, a standard for trial use resources, and it was released December 2018, so 3 months before Safest started. And then you have R5. It's in development. It's currently in preview 3. And from what I've seen, it's estimated to release second quarter of 2022. So we've made some decisions. We wanted to use platform as a service or software as a service for the FIHR API. PaaS or SaaS basically mean you don't have to maintain your service. So you just order something off the shelf in the cloud and Microsoft takes care of updates, maintenance, everything for you. So we chose Microsoft FIHR API, which then enables us to use FIHR version R4. The FIHR API is a complete FIHR server with an API. It has some capabilities, and it has a Cosmos DB at the bottom. Although the data is public, you will need to register to get access to read it. It enables NOMA to have an overview over everybody who's using the resources. The data content will be in Norwegian, mainly. There might be some coded concepts with English display names when using international terminology, but the complete implementation guide will be in English, since everybody's outsourcing these days, and then you will be able to implement it across nationalities. So, how we work with profiling, which has been my responsibility mostly. We had a project set up which was kind of split between technical and functional. The functional team had different workers where they were detailing out those 4 main requirements. And we had the technical team who was setting up the technical platform in Azure. So we were kind of separated. The main responsibility for profiling was with me and the technical team. We had no or little to no previous experience with FIHR on the team. We have been learning by doing. But we had 2 people who went to the FIHR Dev Days in 2019, which is highly recommended for those of you implementing FIHR. Send your developers there. And we have used the community a lot. We have used HL7 Norway. They have a newly started forum called the FIHR Fagforum, which is really good. We have used the Norwegian Directorate of eHealth, and we've used the international FIHR community, for instance, Zulip, where they have their own chats. We made ourselves some guidelines. We wanted to profile as little as possible, and we wanted to provide as much data as possible. So in practice, what I did starting with this, I looked at all the different FIHR resources, specifically then the medications module, because FIHR has very much towards the clinical part and stuff, and they're separated into different modules. I looked at the different resources there. I looked at our internal data model, which is mainly IDMP, and then I started mapping. Where did I get the best fit on a high level between our data and the FIHR data? And I had no specific use cases, which I used. The figure you see here is an overview of the resources in the medications module. It might be a bit small, but it's, just so you know, the naming is R5, so it's not quite as it looks in R4, but it's very similar. The blue ones on the top is what here is called resources for clinical use, for day-to-day prescription in interaction with patients. So you have the medication, you have substance, device, medication administration, medication dispense, medication statement, so forth. The green ones at the bottom is what they have called for regulatory use. So they are very similar to IDMP. You will find the medicinal product, you will find the administrable product, manufactured item, packages, and so forth. So they are almost a one-to-one with IDMP. So we had a moment of panic, actually. In R4, we saw this nice pink box says, this resource is still undergoing development and review by the appropriate work groups. At this time, it's considered only as a draft resource not suitable for production environment. And you also see the maturity level is 0. All resources have a maturity level. 0 means it hasn't been finished by the work group. 1 means the work group is done, but it's not been implemented in any production environment, I think. And you can have up to maturity level 4. So we started looking into, okay, what does this mean? What alternatives do we have? Should we not use FIHR? How are we going forward with this? The only alternatives we saw was R5, actually, or doing something proprietary. We could have gone with R5, but then that means we would be needing to make our own FIHR server and our own FIHR API from scratch. Proprietary is always an alternative, but that goes against standardization. So we concluded by just moving forward with what we had available in R4, and still think that's actually the best way to do it.
Stina?
Yes.
We have a question in the chat box. It's from Julie James, I think. Julie, would you like to phrase it yourself, or shall I read it?
By all means, read it. Thank you, Pelle.
Okay. Is the FIHR implementation guide authorized in the implementation guide? I think it's implementation guide, right? The IG tool. So gets all the automagic verification, for example, or is it authored separately?
The implementation guide is authored in Simplifier. So the implementation guide tool there.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Right.
And for those of you not familiar with Simplifier, it's an online kind of dictionary registry for profiles. So you can look up safest profiles, you could look up US profiles, everything. I think most of the people I talk to publish their profiles there. So we've profiled by mapping each field in the internal data model to the existing properties in the FIHR resource. If we didn't find a match in FIHR, then we always went back to profile as little as possible. We asked, do we really need to distribute it? Do we want to distribute it? How does it look in R5? because R5 had moved forward since R4 had been published. So there was a lot of changes in R5 where the resources was more mature. And depending on the answers of those two questions, we either extended the profile or left out the property. I have been doing a lot of profiling, which is kind of just mimicking R5. And then the mapping and the profiles has been reviewed by the work group, consisting of representatives from all the health regions and NOMA. I've also done an informal review by some of the guys working with the regulatory resources for FIHR. So here's an example of one of our profiles. I do understand it's a bit small, but it's a profile for the package as it stands now. It is subject for some minor changes, but it gives a brief overview of what it is. We have the medicinal product package. We have extended it for a field called repackaging manufacturer, which is if a hospital or pharmacy repacks a package to single dose or single units, if it's called that. And it's the name of the marketing authorization holder or manufacturer. Then we have some business identifiers. The first one here is from the other current medicinal dictionary NOMA has, so that you can map between sources. And you have the Nordic article number. You see we have put some so-called must support flag on some of the properties. And in the implementation guide, you can read what safest means by must support. It basically says that you as a consumer has to support to receiving this field. It might not have data in it, but if it has, you have to be able to receive it, not end in error or something. Then you have the package items. We have an extension here, contained item. And this is one of the things that was lacking in R4, but they made it in R5. And it's the reference to the manufactured item that might be within the package item. And we have the data carrier identifier for that specific package level. So if there's multiple package level, we will provide the data carrier identifier for each of them if we have them. And it's a hierarchy, so a package can have a package within itself. And also we have a must support on other characteristics. And there you will find properties such as storage conditions. I think if it's a single unit, and I think there's a few more properties you will find there. And also there's a link to the actual profile. It's interactive. You can click on the plus and the minus. You can click on the data type fields and you can explore it. So that's mainly how we have worked with profiling. We've done some experiences, some challenges. A small disclaimer, these are subject to reflections from me and should be read as that, not as anything from the project officially.
We have sorry to interrupt, but we have a question, a raised hand. Giorgio?
Hi, this is Giorgio. Can you come back to the previous slide, just for my understanding, about the you have the extension contained item, and can you explain what is the difference? Maybe I misunderstood that step respect to the package item that could be containing to the package item.
Okay, so the medicinal product package is the overall definition and description of the package. And then that package can be just one box. Then you will have just one package item saying box.
Yeah.
Or that package medicinal product can have a box containing a sachet.
Yeah, and you have, if you go down in your profile.
Yes.
I suppose you should have a package item that is the allow container within container.
Yes, it's here. Do you see it?
And just to understand, I don't want to spend time here, but just to understand what is the difference between why you have this extension contain item instead of using the package item within the package item.
Oh, yes. The contained item is not an inner package. The contained item is the manufactured item.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I suppose it was the package.
No, the package item is itself. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So it's a manufactured item that you have in the device or the other thing.
In contained item you can have.
Thank you. Thank you for
device or manufactured item.
Okay, thank you.
There's another question here. Which tool did you use for profiling, and did you consider any others? We used Forge. We didn't really consider any others. We saw it as a simple way to get started, since Simplifier is from Firely and Forge is from Firely. They integrate quite well, and Simplifier and of both Forge seems like the most used tool at the time. I've heard now that there's come multiple new tools for profiling, but I haven't been able to look into any others.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, challenges. The first challenge we received was actually the resources we chose. So we have chosen to profile medicinal product packaged, medicinal product pharmaceutical, medicinal product manufactured, medicinal product ingredient, marketing status, and code system. And I do understand why they changed the names in R5. And HL7 Norway challenged us and asked, why don't you use the medication resource? It's a good question. All clinical software systems are familiar with this resource. That's fine, but how are the regulatory resources supposed to work together with medication? And when do you actually use which? And what is the best way for NOMA and other regulatory services to provide their medicinal product information to their consumers? These are all very good questions, and actually I don't think I have a clear answer for any of them. From what I've seen, these are discussions that are still going on. I think the pharmacy work group has a discussion on Zulip, actually, where there's questions like these. But we concluded to stay with the original plan. Profiling medication would demand a lot of work. It's a quite simple resource, and it doesn't give you out of the box a way to give structured information about packages, about pharmaceutical products, manufactured items. And I see it as it will be easier to go from a high level of detail to a simpler. It's easier than going from a simple data model to an extensive detailed one. And I also think it will be the best fit for NOMA. I think it will be able to support a lot of different use cases, giving that level of detail, and the consumers can then choose how they want to work with the data and what data they are interested in. There's a new question here. If you use the extension for manufactured items and device, you have them within the package item, or they are other types of included items. I think you can include other items. Our profile has specified that the contained item should be a manufactured item, because that's what Safus provides. I don't know how this looks in R5 right now. It might be more stuff, but I assume you can do it as you like if you have any other things you would like to put in a package.
Now, just to understand, this is Giorgio still, just to understand the, if you have added this extension, mean that I would like to learn more and to understand why the existing manufactured item or device are not enough for your purposes. If you have added an extension, means that you have additional needs. So just to understand the reason, but it's not so relevant. So just to.
Oh no, the extension is there because R4 hasn't have the link between package and manufactured item.
I'm referring to R4, not to R5.
Yes, but there was no. If we go back to it, I can. We might see it. There is. Yeah, there's a reference to device here.
Yeah, and also to the manufactured item within the package item.
Yeah, yes. So there's a reference here, but that reference doesn't give you the possibility to say there's this many of it in this package.
Sorry, this.
When you have a package, you have a contained item, you have a manufactured item in it, but there might be 5 of those manufactured items. And you want to say that there's 5 of them.
I don't want to spend time on that. You have 0-star manufactured item, you have 0-star devices, and you have 0-star package items within the package item element. But sorry, I don't want to spend time on that. Sorry.
Oh, I think I see what you mean now. But yeah, we can do a discussion on it afterwards. Okay, so back to challenges. Yes, so we decided to stay on our plan using the regulatory resources. But as I said, these resources was not really mature in R4. So we have been using quite unfinished resources. And for the most part, this means that, for instance, for manufactured item, the property for identifier wasn't there. So all identifiers are now extensions, and because they now are extensions, they are not searchable in the FIHR API. And similar with medicinal product pharmaceutical, there was the reference to medicinal product, the subject for the pharmaceutical product. So we had to as well extend that or profile that in. But we are quite happy to see that the most resources that were missing some parts, we have all been able to find those properties in R5, which means that R5 is covering IDMP better than what R4 was. I think the only property we haven't found in R5 is the authorized pharmaceutical dose form. And now I'm on really thin ice. I have no idea where it comes from or how it interacts with everything, but that's the only property I think we haven't been able to find a proper place for. So that is also an extension. But from my perspective, R5 is looking good in respects to supporting the IDMP data model. The manufactured, as a comment here now, the manufactured item identifier issues should be being fixed both in the ISO standard and through the resources. Yes, the identifiers are in R5. That's true. Oh, yes. The authorized dose form is coming as well.
Yes. I will apologise to everybody. Those were my omissions back in 2012, and it's taken this long to fix them. I'm so sorry.
It's all good, I think, hopefully. All right. One thing I think it will be an issue for Norway going forward now is, with safest going live, Norway will have 2 sources of information from NOMA for medicinal products. They will have the new safest, and they will have what they now have that's called FEST, which is a proprietary format, an XML file published every other week, I think. So safest will provide identifiers for all objects, which is also in FEST. So a consumer should be able to get safest data, and they should be able to get the FEST data, and they can map it together. And this setup will, I think, stand for quite some time. But based on what I've heard from the health region, there is some frustration for how, in practice, how are they going to integrate these 2 resources? So there will be some challenges, I think, there to tackle that, but it will, of course, be manageable. And of course, both IDMP and FIHR enables you to reuse resources. For instance, for manufactured item and ingredient. Safest will reuse a manufactured item, so it doesn't. If you have a box of Paracet tablets, if it's 50 or 20, it doesn't matter. It's the same tablet, so they will link to the same manufactured item. But Safest will not reuse ingredients, not even within the same product. If this is a deliberate decision or not, I'm not actually sure, but it's where we've ended up. Question here now, is migration from a file server from R4 to R5 a simple task? I don't know. I have never done a FIHR migration. Well, the resources are similar, so it might not be that big of a deal, but I have no experience to answer that question, actually. So my conclusion and summary is that I think Safest could have used more time on FIHR. It's big, it's powerful, it gives you a lot of things, and I think there's a lot of things we haven't utilized. And there's a big FIHR community with a lot of people wanting to help, and I encourage you all to get involved in that community if you are doing this and use that. They are the best. There's a lot of ongoing discussions, both international and in Norway, regarding these new regulatory resources and how they are supposed to go together with the well-known medication resources. I think it will be interesting to see where that goes, and I think maybe Unicom and the cross-border prescription will get right into that discussion. It's been a lot like developing against a moving target, but I think we've tackled it quite well. I think use cases is something you should have when profiling. I think it will help a lot. And also domain expertise is important when profiling. Don't let the techie guy do it alone. For me, even though I've been with a NOMA for 5 years, I don't know that much about medicinal products. So it's been a bit a frustrating road, but it all worked out. And someone from the Directorate of eHealth once told me, someone has to jump first. And I feel that Safest has in a lot of ways done that first jump, which has been challenging in a lot of ways, not only with using these really immature resources to FIHR, but from what I've heard, we also kind of went ahead of EMA in regards to active substance ordination and such. So it's been a challenging project on a lot of different ways. I have some examples of how the data will look in the resources. And here's an example for Paracet and the reuse of manufactured item. So you will have a medicinal product for 500 milligrams of Paracet, and it will have 2 types of packages. You will have a package of 50 and you will have a package of 20. And both of those contains the same manufactured item, the tablet 500 milligrams. And that again is made up of the ingredient, paracetamol 500 milligrams per tablet. And that again is made up from a substance. Now the substance specification here is great because Safest will not provide that resource. All substances will be coded toward FEST or SPOR and SNOMED if we have the IDs. So that's kind of a simple example. A bit more complex one. It's the medicinal product, wonder drug, powder and solvent for solution for injection. It has a package. That package again has a foil bag, which contains a device definition. And again, the device definition is great because Safest will not provide that resource as of now. And it will also have a box. And within that box, you will have a sachet and a bottle. The sachet contains a manufactured powder, and the bottle contains a manufactured solvent or water. Now the solvent is not connected to an ingredient. Safest do not provide that. But the powder is made up of some ingredient consisting of some wonder substance chemical. And if you combine those two, you get the pharmaceutical product wonder drug solution for injection. So that's the data examples I had. These are both in the implementation guide as well. And last, you can find all profiles and implementation guide on simplifier.net. Just search safest and you will find it. And the source control for profile is open and available on GitHub under HL7 Norway safest. And feel free to comment and give feedback there.